Dr. Yuna Kim pressed her face against the cold metal of the observation window. Below her, the planet Kepler 442c stretched out like a gray wasteland. No plants, no water, no signs of life. Just rocks and dust under a dim red sun. But her instruments were going crazy. "There's something down there," she told her partner, Dr. Hyuk Lee. "Something big." Hyuk looked up from his computer screen. His dark eyes were tired from weeks of space travel. The scanners show metal structures buried under the surface, really old ones. Their research ship, the Stellar Dawn, had been exploring dead planets for 3 years. Most expeditions found nothing interesting. Sometimes they discovered old bones or broken machines from extinct civilizations, but this felt different. Captain An guided their shuttle down to the planet's surface. The landing was rough because of strong winds. When they stepped outside in their protective suits, Yuna felt excited and nervous at the same time. The ruins appeared after they dug for only 2 hours, massive stone blocks covered in strange symbols. The stones were perfectly cut and fitted, together without any cement. But what made Yuna's heart race were the lights. "These power sources are still working," Hyuk whispered into his radio. "After who knows how many thousands of years, they're still working." They found an entrance that led deep underground. The passage was wide enough for 10 people to walk, side by side. Strange blue lights lined the walls, turning on automatically as they walked forward. The main chamber took Yuna's breath away. The ceiling was so high she couldn't see the top. Machines hummed quietly in the darkness. Screens flickered with symbols that seemed to move on their own. In the center of the room stood a massive crystal, glowing with soft white light. "I've never seen technology like this," Hyuk said. He approached one of the smaller crystals carefully. These appear to be data storage devices, but the energy readings are off the charts. Yuna found herself drawn to the walls. They were covered in pictures and writing. Some images showed star maps. Others depicted strange scenes of destruction, ships exploding, planets cracking apart. And everywhere the same word appeared over and over again. "Humans." She read aloud. The word keeps repeating. "Humans." Hyuk joined her at the wall. "I've heard that name before. In old stories. Scary stories that parents tell children to make them behave." "These aren't stories," Yuna said, pointing to a detailed star map. "Look at these coordinates. They mark locations all across the galaxy. Dozens of them. They worked for hours, copying data and taking pictures. The crystal storage devices contained fragments of information. Most of it was damaged or incomplete, but the pieces they could read painted a terrifying picture. References to the architects of destruction appeared frequently. The Void Walkers was another common phrase. The fragments described beings who could tear holes in the fabric of space and make stars burn cold. "This has to be mythology," Hyuk said, but his voice shook. No species could have this kind of power. Yuna wasn't so sure. The technology around them was proof that someone had capabilities far beyond anything in the current galaxy. The power sources alone were impossible by modern standards. They were preparing to leave when Yuna noticed something strange. One wall section looked different, newer somehow even though it was clearly ancient. She called Hyuk over. "This section was added later," she said. "Look at how the stone is cut differently." The newer section contained a single message repeated in dozens of languages. Most were unknown, but a few matched languages in the galactic database. The message was simple and terrifying. "Beware the return of the firstborn." Back on the ship, Captain An was receiving urgent communications from Fleet Command. Commander Tae Park's voice crackled through the speakers. "We have reports of star systems going dark along the galaxy's rim," Tae said. 3 systems in the past month. No distress signals, no survivors. The systems just stop existing. "Admiral," Bo Shin's voice cut in. "It's probably natural phenomena. Stars die. It happens." But Tae didn't sound convinced. "Sir, these weren't old stars. The Kepler 7 system had a stable sun with billions of years left. The Vega outpost had a population of 50 million people. They can't all just vanish." Yuna and Hyuk exchanged worried looks. The timing seemed too convenient. Ancient warnings about the firstborn returning, and now star systems disappearing. We need to investigate more sites, Yuna told Captain An. If these ruins contain accurate star maps, we can find other locations. Maybe get more complete information. Captain An nodded. I'll request permission to extend our mission. But as they prepared to leave Kepler 442c, their instruments detected something new. Across the galaxy, old beacons were activating. Beacons that had been silent for tens of thousands of years. The signals were all the same message they had found on the wall. Beware the return of the firstborn. Dr. Hyuk Lee ran analysis after analysis, but the results never changed. The beacons were using technology that shouldn't exist. They were broadcasting on frequencies that could reach across entire galactic arms instantly. Someone is sending a warning, Yuna said quietly. But who? And warning us about what? 3 days later, another star system went dark. Then another. The pattern was becoming clear. Whatever was causing the disappearances was moving toward the center of the galaxy. Moving toward the populated systems where trillions of beings lived and worked and raised their families. Yuna stared at the star maps they had discovered. Each marked location was positioned along the path of the disappearances, as if someone had planned it long ago, as if someone had known this day would come. We need to find out who the humans were, she told Hyuk, and we need to find out fast. But deep in her heart, she suspected they might be too late. The ancient warnings weren't about the humans returning. They were about what would happen when the humans were gone. And whatever that thing was, it was already here. The galaxy was about to remember why it had feared the humans in the first place. Not because they were dangerous, but because without them, something much worse could return. Captain Wu Chang felt the cold leaving his body as the cryogenic pod opened with a soft hiss. His muscles ached from 50,000 years of sleep. The ship's computer spoke in a calm voice. Welcome back, Captain. Emergency protocols have been activated. Wu sat up slowly, his head spinning. The last thing he remembered was Earth burning in the distance as their colony ship fled into deep space. The memories came flooding back. The wars. The weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The terrible realization that humanity was too dangerous to exist near other species. Status report, he said, his voice rough from the long sleep. We are in the Andromeda Void as planned. Current date is approximately 50,000 years after departure from Earth. The crew remains in stasis. However, long-range sensors have detected concerning signals from our original galaxy. Wu made his way to the bridge, his legs shaky from the long sleep. The new horizon was massive, designed to carry 10,000 humans to a new life far from anyone they could hurt. The ship was also their prison, keeping humanity away from a galaxy that was better off without them. Dr. Yun Choi's pod opened next. She was Wu's wife and the ship's chief historian. Her job was to remember why they had left, so future generations would understand the sacrifice their ancestors had made. The awakening protocols only activate for extreme emergencies, Yun said, checking her instruments. What's happening back home? Wu pulled up the sensor data on the main screen. The readings made his blood run cold. Dimensional barriers are failing across 17 sectors. Reality distortions are increasing. And these energy signatures, Yun's face went pale. The Devourers are breaking through. The Devourers were humanity's greatest shame and their most terrible enemy. They were machine entities from another dimension, beings that fed on the fundamental forces that held reality together. Humanity had discovered them by accident during early experiments with dimensional travel. We barely contained them last time, Wu said. And that was with our full military might at its peak. The containment fields were designed to last 1,000,000 years, Yun replied, but her voice lacked confidence. We never thought we'd be gone this long, Wu finished. The current galactic species don't even know the Devourers exist. They have no defenses. Wu activated the ship's long-range communication system. It took hours to get a clear signal across the void between galaxies. When the first transmissions came through, they painted a grim picture. Star systems were disappearing, along the galaxy's outer rim. Not destroyed, but simply ceasing to exist. The space they once occupied became empty void, as if they had never been there at all. It was exactly what happened when devourers fed. "How many people live in the galaxy now?" Wu asked. Yoon checked the historical databases. Based on these transmissions, approximately 8 trillion beings across thousands of species. They've built a peaceful civilization. No major wars in over 20,000 years. Wu closed his eyes. A peaceful civilization with no experience of real warfare. No weapons designed to fight enemies that existed outside normal spacetime. They would be helpless against the devourers. "We have a choice to make," he said. "We can stay hidden and let the galaxy burn, or we can return and risk being seen as the greater threat." The crew began awakening in stages. Captain Sun Lee commanded the ship's military forces. Engineer Gil Park maintained their impossible technology. Scientist Dr. Ray Park studied the dimensional barriers that kept reality stable. Each crew member faced the same horrible realization. Humanity had exiled itself to protect the galaxy from their own destructive nature. But in doing so, they had removed the only force capable of fighting the devourers. "The containment fields are failing faster than predicted," Dr. Ray Park reported. "At current rates, the devourers will break through completely within 6 months." "What about the guardian posts we left behind?" asked Captain Sun Lee. Yoon checked. "The historical records. Destroyed or forgotten. The species that replaced us didn't understand their purpose. They thought they were just old ruins." Wu gathered his senior officers in the main conference room. The weight of decision pressed down on all of them. They had the power to save the galaxy, but at what cost? "If we return, they'll fear us," said Sun Lee. "The stories about humanity have grown into legends. They think we were monsters." "We were monsters," Wu replied quietly. "That's why we left." "But we've changed," Dr. Ray Park insisted. 50,000 years of isolation have taught us restraint. We're not the same species that left Earth." "Will they believe that?" Yoon asked. "When they see our ships, our weapons? The technology we use casually would terrify them." Wu looked out at the stars. Somewhere in the distance, trillions of innocent beings were living their lives. Unaware that reality itself was under attack. Children were playing, families were gathering for meals, scientists were making discoveries, artists were creating beautiful works. All of it would end if the devourers broke through completely. "We don't have a choice," Wu said finally. "We swore an oath when we left. To protect the galaxy, even from ourselves. That oath still stands." The New Horizon began its long journey home. As they traveled, they monitored the situation in their old galaxy. More star systems disappeared every day. The unknown species were trying to investigate, but their technology couldn't even detect what was destroying their worlds. "They're sending exploration ships to the affected areas," reported Communications Officer Jin Park. "The ships just vanish. No wreckage, no survivors." "The devourers are testing their defenses," Wu explained. "Learning how the current species think and fight. Soon they'll launch a full invasion." "How long until we reach the galaxy?" asked Sun Lee. "At maximum speed, 3 months," replied Gil Park. "But Captain, there's something else. Our return won't go unnoticed. The energy signature of our dimensional drives will be visible across half the galaxy." Wu nodded. He had expected this. Humanity's return would cause panic among the peaceful species. They would see humans as invaders, not saviors. "Then we'd better make sure we arrive in time to prove ourselves," he said. As the New Horizon crossed the void between galaxies, its crew prepared for the hardest battle in human history. Not just against the devourers, but against the fear and hatred their own reputation had earned. They were returning to a galaxy that had learned to live without them. A galaxy that might decide humanity was still the greater threat, even as reality itself crumbled around them. Dr. Yuna Kim was studying crystal fragments in her laboratory when the alarm started screaming. She looked up from her microscope as Captain An's voice filled the ship. "Unknown vessel approaching. Energy signature is unlike anything in our databases." Yuna rushed to the bridge where the crew stared at their screens in amazement. The ship that appeared before them looked like it was built from liquid metal and starlight. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "This is Captain Sun Lee of the human vessel Pathfinder," came a voice over the radio. "We request permission to come aboard for peaceful contact." The bridge fell silent. Human. The word sent chills down everyone's spines. The legendary species from the ancient ruins. The architects of destruction. They were real. And they were here. "Should we run?" whispered Dr. Hyuk Lee. Captain An straightened his shoulders. "We're scientists, not cowards. Give them permission to dock." Captain Sun Lee was not what Yuna had expected. She was small and calm with kind eyes. She wore a simple uniform and carried no visible weapons. But there was something in the way she moved that suggested incredible power held in careful control. "Thank you for meeting with us," Sun said through her translator device. "We know our return is frightening. We're here because you're all in terrible danger." "From you?" Captain An asked directly. Sun smiled sadly. "From something much worse than us. Tell me, have you noticed star systems disappearing along the galaxy's rim?" Yuna stepped forward. "We've been investigating ancient ruins, sites that mention humans. The disappearances started after we found warning beacons. The warning beacons we left 50,000 years ago," Sun confirmed. "We hoped they would never activate. But the Devourers have returned." She explained about the entities from another dimension that fed on reality itself, about humanity's ancient war against them, about the exile that had left the galaxy defenseless. "You're asking us to believe that humans are the good guys in this story?" Dr. Hyuk Lee said. "The legends say you could destroy planets for fun." "We could," Sun admitted. "And sometimes we did. That's why we left." To prove her point, she gestured toward the window. Outside, a Confederation battlecruiser was approaching with weapons charged. Captain An received an urgent transmission. "Research vessel Stellar Dawn. Move away from the unknown ship immediately. We are authorized to use deadly force." Sun sighed. "May I demonstrate why running won't help?" She pulled out a small device that looked like a simple metal rod. She pressed a button and suddenly the battlecruiser stopped moving. All its lights went out. The massive warship just floated in space like a dead whale. "I shut down their power systems," Sun explained casually. "They're not hurt, just disabled. I could have torn their ship apart atom by atom, but we don't do that anymore." She pressed the button again and the battlecruiser's lights came back on. Yuna could hear panicked radio chatter from the confused crew. "How did you do that?" Captain An asked. "We learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that hold matter together. It's basic human technology. What you call impossible, we call convenient." News of first contact spread across the galaxy within hours. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Diplomatic envoy Jin Park represented humanity at the meeting, while Dr. Quan Yu served as their scientific advisor. Chancellor Nala, a tall reptilian being from the Thessian Empire, spoke for the council. "The return of humanity poses an existential threat to galactic peace. Your species' reputation precedes you." "We understand your fear," Jin said calmly. "But we've changed. 50,000 years of exile taught us the value of restraint." "Restraint?" Chancellor Nala laughed harshly. "Your scout ship disabled one of our most advanced battlecruisers with a handheld device. What do your actual warships carry?" Dr. Quan Yu tried to ease their fears. "We've evolved beyond our destructive past. We use our power to protect now, not to conquer." But the demonstration had the opposite effect. When Jin mentioned that humans now numbered in the trillions across multiple dimensions, several council members fainted. Others began discussing immediate military action against humanity. "You're talking about attacking beings who can shut down your ships with pocket tools," pointed out Yuna, who was attending as an expert on human archaeology. "That seems unwise." The debate was interrupted by urgent reports from the galaxy's outer edge. 3 more star systems had vanished in the past hour. The disappearances were accelerating. "The Devourers are no longer testing," Sun Lee reported from the Pathfinder. "They're beginning their main assault." She displayed images that made the council members recoil in horror. The affected areas weren't just empty space. They were wounds in reality itself. Places where the fundamental laws of physics had broken down. Your weapons can't hurt them, Dr. Kuan Yu explained. Devourers exist partially outside normal space-time. Energy weapons pass right through them. Kinetic weapons don't have enough dimensional anchoring. Then how do humans fight them? Demanded Admiral Jack Theta, a warrior from the militaristic Corvani Union. Sun Li activated a holographic display showing human military doctrine. We use reality anchors to force them into normal space. Then we destroy them with weapons that channel dimensional energy. The weapons she described sounded like magic to the council members. Projectiles that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Energy beams that attacked the bonds between quarks. Bombs that could unravel the strong nuclear force in a localized area. These are the tools of gods, whispered Chancellor Nyla. No, Sun replied quietly. These are the tools of a species that got too good at breaking things. We learned to build weapons that could kill reality itself. That's why we had to leave. A new alarm interrupted the meeting. The Devourer incursion had reached the Centauri sector. 12 billion beings lived there. As the council watched in horror, the sector's main star began to flicker and fade. They're draining the nuclear fusion process, Dr. Kuan Yu explained. When they're finished, the star will collapse into a cold, dead ball of iron. How long until they reach the core systems? Asked Chancellor Nala. Sun checked her calculations. At their current rate of expansion, 6 months. Maybe less. The council chamber erupted in panic. Representatives shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for desperate last stands. A few suggested fleeing to distant galaxies. There is another option, Jin Park said quietly, and the chamber fell silent. You could let us help. Help? Chancellor? Nala's voice dripped with suspicion. And what would you want in return? Nothing, Jin replied. We made a promise when we left, to protect this galaxy, even from ourselves. We intend to keep that promise, even if we don't trust you, especially if you don't trust us. Trust must be earned. We're ready to earn it. The vote was close. Half the council wanted to reject human help and face the Devourers alone. Half decided that extinction was worse than accepting aid from their legendary enemies. Chancellor Nala cast the deciding vote. We accept your help. But know this, humans, we will be watching you. If you prove to be the greater threat, we will fight. You to our last breath. Sun Li bowed respectfully. We wouldn't expect anything less. Now let's save your galaxy. As the meeting ended, Yuna approached Sun privately. Can you really stop these devourers? Sun's expression was grim. We stopped them before, but it cost us everything. And this time, they've had 50,000 years to grow stronger. The first major Devourer attack came without warning. Admiral Huan Moon was reviewing battle plans when the emergency signal started flooding in from the Outer Rim Defense Fleet. Admiral, we're losing contact with the entire 5th Squadron, reported Communications Officer Kang. 60 ships gone in 30 seconds. Huan activated the main display screen. What he saw made his stomach turn. The space where the 5th Squadron had been was now empty void. Not debris, not wreckage. Nothing. As if the ships and the space around them had never existed. Devourers, he whispered. The enemy had finally revealed themselves. Massive shapes moved through space, visible only as distortions in starlight. They looked like tears in reality itself. Dark wounds that hurt to look at directly. Each one was the size of a small moon. All fleet units, this is Admiral Moon, Huan broadcast across all channels. Implement Protocol Omega. Human vessels, you are authorized to engage. The human response fleet was small compared to the Galactic Defense Force, only 12 ships, each one sleek and silver like liquid metal. But as they moved into battle formation, space itself seemed to bend around them. Captain Dong Yu commanded the human destroyer Retribution. He opened a channel to the Allied fleet. Galactic forces, Please maintain minimum safe distance of 10,000 kilometers. We're going to step outside normal spacetime. What does that mean? Demanded Galactic Admiral Kes Varan. It means we're going hunting, Dong replied. The human ships simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. But their weapons fire continued, striking the Devourers from impossible angles. Beams of energy appeared from empty space, hitting targets that conventional sensors couldn't even detect. They're fighting in the same dimensional space as the enemy, Dr. Yuna Kim explained from the observation deck of the command ship. She had requested permission to witness the battle firsthand. Humans learned to travel through what they call shadow space during their original war with the Devourers. The battle was unlike anything the galactic forces had ever seen. Devourers that had seemed unstoppable suddenly found themselves under attack from beings that could match their dimensional abilities. Human weapons weren't just firing energy, beams. They were firing reality anchors that forced the Devourers into normal space where they could be destroyed. Target eliminated, reported Captain Sun Lee from the Pathfinder, but there are dozens more coming through the breach. The Devourers were emerging from a massive tear in space near the galactic rim. The tear was growing larger as more entities pushed through from their dimension. Through the opening, Yuna could see the writhing darkness of the Devourer home realm. We need to close that breach, Admiral Huan said. How do we do that? Captain Dong Yu's voice crackled through the comm system. We can collapse it, but it requires a massive energy discharge. The explosion will destroy everything within a light-year radius. There are 3 inhabited systems within that range, Admiral Voran protested. Billions of innocent lives. Then we evacuate them, Huan said grimly. Because if we don't close that breach, the entire galaxy will die. The evacuation began immediately. Human ships worked alongside galactic vessels to move entire populations to safety. The humans' transport technology was incredible. They could move millions of people in ships that looked impossibly small. How do you fit so many people in such small vessels? Yuna asked Captain Sun Lee during the evacuation. We learned to fold space, Sun explained casually. The inside of our ships exists in compressed dimensions. What looks like a small shuttle can actually hold a city's worth of people. As the evacuation continued, more Devourers poured through the breach. They began attacking planets directly, draining the energy from entire worlds. When they finished, with a planet, it became a lifeless ball of cold rock, its atmosphere frozen solid. They're not just destroying the planets, observed Dr. Kuan Yu. They're unraveling the fundamental forces that hold matter together. Those worlds won't even be able to support life again. The human fleet fought desperately to buy time for the evacuations. Captain Dong Yu shared his historical knowledge with the Allied forces. During the original war, we learned that Devourers become stronger as they feed. Each planet they drain makes them harder to kill. How did humans win the first war? Asked Admiral Voran. Dong's answer chilled everyone. We didn't win. We barely managed a stalemate. And it cost us our homeworld. The truth about Earth's destruction finally came out. Humanity hadn't left by choice. They had used their own planet as a weapon, turning Earth into a massive bomb that closed the original Devourer breach. The explosion had also damaged the dimensional barriers around the entire solar system. That's why you really left, Yuna realized. Not because you were too dangerous to other species, because your home was destroyed. Both reasons are true, Captain Sun Lee said sadly. We had to leave because we had no home, but we also chose exile because we knew our grief would make us even more destructive. The battle reached its climax when the largest Devourer yet emerged from the breach. It was the size of a small planet, and its presence began unraveling reality. In a sphere around it, stars flickered and died. Space itself became unstable. That's a Nexus class, whispered Dr. Ray Park from the human science vessel. We only fought one of those before. It took everything we had. Admiral Huan made the hard decision. All ships, fall back. Prepare the breach collapse. The human ships formed a perfect sphere around the dimensional tear. Each vessel began charging. Weapons that had never been used in this galaxy. Weapons so powerful that their energy signatures could be detected from the galactic core. Galactic Command, this is Admiral Moon, Juan broadcast. We are about to deploy humanity's forbidden arsenal. All non-human vessels must retreat to minimum safe distance of 5 light years. 5 light years? Admiral Voran sounded shocked. What kind of weapons require that much clearance? The kind that can crack space-time itself, Captain Dong Yu answered. As the galactic fleet retreated, the human ships began their final attack. Beams of energy that looked like liquid starlight poured from their weapons. But these weren't normal energy beams. They were reality cutters that could sever the connections between dimensions. The effect was spectacular and terrifying. The dimensional breach began to collapse, but it fought back like a living thing. Waves of distorted space-time rippled outward from the battle. Entire star systems flickered in and out of existence. The barrier is closing, reported Dr. Ray Park. But the Nexus is fighting the collapse. It's trying to keep the breach open. The human ships concentrated their fire on the massive devourer. The creature writhed and screamed in frequencies that made reality itself vibrate. Slowly, painfully, it began to be pulled back toward its home dimension. But as the breach closed, the Nexus made one final desperate attack. It launched itself at the human formation, intending to drag them all back to the devourer realm. All ships emergency jump, ordered Admiral Juan. Get out of here now. Most of the human ships escaped, but 3 vessels, including Captain Dong Yu's destroyer, were caught by the collapsing dimensional barrier. Yuna watched in horror as they were pulled into the closing breach. Captain Yu, respond, Admiral Juan called desperately. Dong's voice came through, fading fast. Tell them our story. Tell them why we fight. The breach collapsed with a flash of light that could be seen across half the galaxy. When it faded, the tear in space was gone. The surviving devourers, cut off from their home dimension, began to weaken and fade. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. 3 human ships and their crews had been sacrificed to save the galaxy. And somewhere in the darkness, Dr. Yuna Kim suspected this was just the beginning. The celebrations across the galaxy lasted only 3 days. Then the sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. Deep in the Andromeda void, something massive was moving toward their galaxy. Something that made the previous devourers look like insects. Captain Wu Chang stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, studying the readings with growing horror. It's the Nexus Prime, he told his daughter, Commander High Moon. The mother of all devourers. We always knew this. Day would come. The entity approaching them was beyond imagination. It was larger than most solar systems, a writhing mass of darkness that consumed everything in its path. As it moved through space, entire regions of reality simply stopped existing behind it. How long until it reaches the galaxy? Hai asked. 6 weeks, Wu replied. And when it arrives, it won't just drain a few planets. It will unravel the fundamental forces that hold the entire galaxy together. Dr. Yuna Kim was aboard the New Horizon, working alongside human scientists to find a solution. She had become humanity's unofficial ambassador to the rest of the galaxy, helping to translate between species that still feared each other. The Galactic Defense Forces are preparing for battle, she reported to Captain Wu. But their weapons can't even scratch something that large. Neither can ours, Wu admitted. The Nexus Prime exists partially outside our dimension. Most of our reality-anchoring weapons won't work on it. Dr. Yun Choi, the ship's historian, had been studying ancient records from humanity's previous encounter with the Nexus Prime. What she found was not encouraging. The last time we faced one of these, it took the combined sacrifice of Earth's entire population to drive it back, she reported. And even then, we didn't destroy it. We just forced it to retreat for 50,000 years. There has to be another way, insisted Dr. Ray Park, humanity's lead scientist. We've learned so much since then. Our technology is more advanced. But as they ran simulation after simulation, the answer remained the same. The only way to stop the Nexus Prime was to create a dimensional collapse so massive that it would trap both the entity and whoever triggered the collapse in the void between realities. Captain Sun Lee proposed the obvious solution. The human fleet will make the sacrifice. We'll take our ships into the void and collapse the barriers from the inside. That's suicide, protested Admiral Juan Moon. Even if you succeed, you'll be trapped forever in dimensional limbo. Then, we'll find a way to escape, said Commander High Moon. Humans are good at surviving impossible situations. But Dr. Yan Kim, Yuna's daughter who had joined the research team, had a different idea. She had been studying the psychological profiles of various galactic species, trying to understand why humans were uniquely capable of fighting devourers. It's not just your technology, she told the human commanders. It's your ability to remain rational when facing cosmic horrors. Most species go insane when they encounter devourers. Their minds can't process something that violates the laws of reality. So? Captain Wu asked. So we teach other species to think like humans. We create a joint task force that can operate in dimensional space without losing their sanity. The idea was revolutionary. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species would work together not just as allies but as integrated units sharing technology and tactics. Dr. Yuna Kim helped coordinate the training program. Volunteers from dozens of species learned human meditation techniques designed to maintain mental stability while experiencing impossible things. They practiced fighting simulated devourers in virtual reality systems that pushed their minds to the breaking point. Many volunteers broke down and had to be removed from the program, but others adapted, developing the same stubborn refusal to surrender that made humans so effective against reality-warping enemies. It's working, reported Captain Sun Lee after the first joint training exercises. The Corvani warriors are especially good at it. Their warrior culture already teaches them to ignore fear. Engineer Gil Park worked frantically to adapt human dimensional technology for other species. The results were crude compared to true human equipment, but they allowed non-humans to survive in shadow space for limited periods. We can give them 30 minutes of dimensional existence, he reported. After that, their minds start to break down from the sensory overload. 30 minutes might be enough, Captain Wu said thoughtfully. The Nexus Prime continued its approach, leaving a trail of destroyed star systems in its wake. But now it wasn't facing just humans. Representatives from every major galactic species had volunteered for the desperate mission. Yuna found herself aboard the lead assault ship, serving as the liaison between human and galactic forces. The ship's commander was her old friend Captain Sun Lee, but the crew included beings from a dozen different worlds. Are you ready for this? Sun asked as they prepared to enter shadow space. No one's ever ready to fight something that shouldn't exist, Yuna replied. But we're here anyway. The joint fleet entered dimensional space just as the Nexus Prime reached the galaxy's edge. The entity was even more terrifying up close. It wasn't just large, it was incomprehensible. Looking at it directly caused reality to blur around the edges. Remember your training, Captain Wu broadcast to all ships. Don't try to understand what you're seeing. Just focus on the mission. The battle that followed defied description. Ships flickered in and out of multiple dimensions, firing weapons that existed in 7 different realities simultaneously. The Nexus Prime fought back with attacks that rewrote the laws of physics in localized areas. Commander High Moon led a squadron of volunteers deep into the entity's core. Their mission was to plant dimensional charges that would create a cascade collapse, trapping the Nexus Prime in a pocket dimension. Charges planted, she reported. But the collapse will trap everyone within 1,000 light-year radius. We won't be able to escape in time. Then we find another way, Yuna said firmly. She had been working with Dr. Yan Kim on a desperate plan. What if we don't trap it? What if we redirect it? The idea was insane even by human standards. Instead of collapsing the dimensions around the Nexus Prime, they would create a dimensional tunnel that would redirect its movement away from populated space. It will require precise timing, Dr. Ray Park warned. And someone will have to stay behind to guide the tunnel as it forms. I'll do it, Captain Wu volunteered immediately. No, said Commander High Moon. This is my generation's fight. You've already sacrificed enough. Father and daughter argued while the Nexus Prime continued its assault on reality itself. Finally, Yuna made the decision for them. We'll all do it, she said. Humans taught us that impossible things become possible when people work together. Let's prove that lesson. The combined fleet formed a perfect sphere around the Nexus Prime. Human ships provided the dimensional technology. Galactic vessels supplied the raw firepower. Together they began to carve a tunnel through space-time itself. The process was agonizing. Reality twisted and screamed around them. Several volunteers lost their sanity and had to be restrained, but they held the line, pouring everything they had into the dimensional tunnel. It's working, reported Dr. Ray Park. The tunnel is stabilizing. The Nexus Prime is being pulled toward the void between galaxies, but as the entity was drawn into the tunnel, it made one final desperate attack. Tendrils of pure darkness lashed out at the assembled fleet. Several ships were destroyed instantly, their crews erased from existence. We're losing containment, Captain Sun Lee warned. The tunnel is collapsing. That's when something unexpected happened. Volunteers from the galactic species began linking their ships to the human vessels, sharing power and dimensional stability. Corvani warriors chanted battle songs that helped maintain focus. Thessian engineers shared processing power with human computers. This is impossible, whispered Dr. Yoon Choi. No one has ever maintained a dimensional tunnel this large for this long. Humans taught us not to accept impossible, replied Admiral Kes Voran, commanding a squadron of galactic defense vessels. Today we return the favor. The tunnel held. Slowly, painfully, the Nexus Prime was drawn away from the galaxy and into the empty void beyond. As it disappeared into the tunnel, its influence on reality began to fade. Tunnel collapse in 30 seconds, reported Engineer Gil Park. All ships, prepare for dimensional re-entry. The fleet escaped just as the tunnel collapsed behind them. The Nexus Prime was gone, banished to the space between galaxies where it could harm no one. But the victory came with a cost. A third of the human fleet had been destroyed. Hundreds of volunteers from other species had sacrificed their lives, and humanity's secret technologies were now shared with the entire galaxy. Are you worried? Yuna asked Captain Wu as they surveyed the aftermath. About other species having your weapons? Wu smiled tiredly. We learned something important today. It's not the weapons that make humans dangerous. It's our willingness to use them for others instead of against them. The galaxy had changed forever. The peaceful civilizations had learned to fight cosmic horrors. Humanity had found a new purpose as teachers and guardians instead of destroyers. And somewhere in the void, new threats were already stirring, drawn by the dimensional energies that had been unleashed. But for the first time in 50,000 years, humanity was no longer alone.